Hello, Tommy. I get my promise in here. I get my promise in here.
I hope you understand.
I'm trying to help you while you're here. Trying to help you. If you'd like to say anything, it's yours. The room is yours. The room is yours.
Welcome to Surviving Evidence with your host, Chris Cesare, and co-host, Phil Casey. Chris is a New York-based author and respected authority in the paranormal field. His survival of the C2D1 Haunting ranks among the most documented paranormal events in history. Chris is known for being someone who has taken the trauma and tragedy of such an experience and turned it into a tale of hope and survival. He is joined by his wingman and longtime friend Phil Casey, who is also a native of the Empire State. Together they will bring you engaging interviews with some of the top authors, TV and radio personalities, and paranormal researchers in the field. Now here are your hosts of Surviving Evidence, Chris Cesare and Phil Casey on WGOG Digital Broadcasting.
Live from the historic Hudson Valley of New York State. A huge welcome to all of you. Hello to everyone listening in from across this giant spinning marble. What you call what? Yep, the Earth. This is Chris Cesare, the Ghost Boy of Geneseo from the Sci-Fi Network, and you're listening to Surviving Evidence on Let's Talk Radio. At my side, once again, for our weekly hour adventure, my wingman and interior designer, Mr. Phil Casey.
I see the wingman signal. That means I'm on. It's like the bat signal, only it's got less bat.
So what happens then? So the wingman goes in the sky. What do?
I just show up.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it's kind of, I just appear.
You bring gifts, or what happens?
It depends on the situation.
Advice, perhaps some advice you give people?
I definitely advise.
Like, stop in the sign of the sky, I'm tired today?
Whether they like it or not. I usually throw in my 4 cents.
I think they'll like that, and your 4 cents. You can join your 11 hosts in the Let's Talk Radio chat room at www.wgogdb.com. That's www.wgogdblmnopqrs.
That's the ABCs.
Sorry for the long day. It's a fun place to share your thoughts, ask a few questions, and meet some interesting people. We'd love to see you there.
And let's see. As always, we have Kathleen in the chat room with us.
She's cool.
There is a Barry Martz in the chat room. What's up, Barry?
Most excellent.
It's one of our fan favorites. And actually, Michelle Prevost. I hope I said that last name right. I butchered last name sometimes.
She's rocking from Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Awesome. And there's some other, not other than Bill Edwards that's in there, there's some other sketchy people in there like Phil Casey and Chris Cesare.
Well, sketchy is good. You can draw things that way.
Well, you could.
And sketch things, you know?
Yeah, I have a sketchbook.
I don't want to see it.
No.
I don't want it all. But before we introduce this evening's guest, it's going to be a great show. Phil and I would like to express our ongoing thanks to Mr. Todd Bates, the general manager of this fine network. Todd is a gentleman who produces our show, runs the chat room, and creates much of the advertising that you hear, and who, most importantly, was not mentioned by name in James Comey's new book, Higher Loyalty.
That took a lot of hush money from Trump lawyers.
Yeah, that Stormy Lady is not happy with that whole thing, is she?
Yeah, she still took the money.
Oh, she took a lot of things. So, we also want to call your attention to some of the other fine programs that are hosted here on Let's Talk Radio. On Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our good friend John Tobin brings you Keeping the Spirits Alive. And at 9 p.m., he of the Velvet Voice, Mr. Todd Bates, hosts Haunted Voices Radio. If you haven't listened to these shows, you're missing out on some quality programming. Alabama's own Kat Hobson is host of Paranormal Experienced, which airs Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. Kat is one of the best in the business. Paranormal Evidence with Tony Rathbun follows at 10 p.m. on Wednesday evenings. And then start your weekend off right, listening to Ghost Talk with I-87PI, featuring Shelley Burke Robertson, followed by Fate Magazine Radio on Friday evenings at 8 and 9 p.m. respectively. Follow The Path of Discovery with Lisa Victorson, Sundays at 6 p.m. And if you're looking for a radio show that you prepped and in a very positive mind for the upcoming work week, the talented and gifted Ariel Grace hosts A Gang of Girls Radio every Sunday night at 8 Eastern Standard Time. Most of all, we want to thank all of our loyal listeners who tune in each and every week, and sometimes by the droves, to see what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into next. And we'll love you right back.
We absolutely do. Thank you guys so much for coming with us on this journey for 1 hour tonight and every night, and whether it's day or night, depending on where you are in the world or country. A very gracious thank you.
Hey, if they launch that Wingman signal, and let's say they're in Taiwan, how do you see it?
Oh, that's the other. It's like multiple Batmans.
Or like the Green Lantern. Green Lantern, there's like 7 of them,
That's
right?
right, yes.
And they're all different.
There are multiple wingmen.
But all respected.
Or women.
Got it.
Not all of them.
So they're wing women and wingmen and wingkins and wing grandpas.
Yes, and there's different, like the Green Lantern and the Yellow Lantern. There's like the Red Wingman.
Is there Paul McCartney and Wingman? I'm going to stop right there. Guess what time it is, Phil?
It is absolutely time to go for a walk tonight.
Almost. That's after our guest. And tonight's first guest, he is a member of Webster Masonic Lodge, number 538 of the Grand Lodge of New York, and served as worshipful master, leader of the lodge. He assisted the late George Peter, past Grand Historian of the Grand Lodge of New York, with completing his book, The Power and Passion of Freemasonry.
The book explores many Masonic topics, including the history of Freemasonry in the Finger Lake region of New York, which includes the Sullivan Campaign. Our guest was the producer of the award-winning film, Please Talk With Me. The film is an authentic retelling of the C2D1 Haunting. He is an active student of Freemasonry and enjoys researching life's mysteries, including the paranormal.
In October of 2015, he organized the C2D1 Haunting 30th Anniversary Symposium at SUNY Geneseo and published Tim Shaw's book on those 1985 events. Tonight, he'll be sharing his insights on all of this, as well as his plans and goals for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Will Rogers. Mr. Edward Williams. No, Mr. Bill Edwards.
Hey, Chris. How you doing? Hey, Phil.
Hey, doing well.
I think it's Charlie Williams or Joe Rogers, or I'm not quite sure.
Charlie Williams. He played for the Giants in San Francisco back in baseball in 1980, 75 and 76. A relief pitcher. He was all right. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't an all-star, but he was all right.
It's all right to be not an all-star.
He has this curly black hair.
The mustache?
That sounds inappropriate. In any event, welcome to the show, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you on. Some of the listeners understand that you have been a very prominent part of my life in the last number of years, and that it was largely your work that has allowed the haunting that people call C2D1 to become known across the span, the airwaves, etc. And I was wondering if you don't mind just sharing with the listeners how you might have heard of this haunting and what made you interested in it.
Sure, be glad to. So back around 1993, I had, through my wife's family, childhood friend's family, the Lewis family, I had met an individual by the name of Alan Lewis. And Alan was an early researcher of the haunting and was friends of John Jeff Ungar, and who obviously you and John Jeff are the main principal ones who experienced the haunting. So I was shown a picture of the picture of the ghost back at that time, and it was just very compelling to me. And just being interested in the paranormal, watching shows about it, such as In Search Of and other shows as a child, to see that was just so compelling that something had happened there. And then I was very fortunate to then be able to start talking to individuals who were involved in the haunting and to start collecting details. And I saw the journal notes early on, heard the audio tape and different things that then we were able to use in the film to share with others. So it's just an amazing story at that time to hear and then to become part of it.
And that film has really affected a lot of people in a very positive way. But many people, Bill, see TV shows or they read books in the paranormal, but for some reason you decided to create within that field. What about your background or interests inspired you to actually become an active part of sharing some of these events?
So I think it's a few things come into play there. First, just a genuine interest in wanting to explore the paranormal, if this is a possibility to share this story that had real substance. So at the time that we were doing the filming, a few years before that, Blair Witch was very popular. And then people were researching it and going and looking to it, and then they found out, it was really made up, that there was nothing there. And that's many of the cases when there's a horror film or something, it's been modified or adapted. So we had the opportunity to really try to attempt to do the authentic retelling of what people experienced. I think the second thing was when I was approached by the director, Mara Catria, who's just an incredibly amazing, talented individual,
yes.
And I saw her passion for the project, and then she brought you on board, and then reached out to John Jeff and brought Jeff, and just the team that assembled was just incredible. And then there was just an energy behind it. And as we often commented, and it's even in the film, this is a story that wants to be told. And there was just something about this that we all started to feel this need to share this in a way that people could experience it and then learn from it. And then lastly, me personally, I'm a project manager, program manager, so I was able to bring the business skills to it. I'm not the most creative person, but there's a lot of different aspects that come into making a film project. So I was able to handle the business agreements and contracts and insurances and getting props for the set and all of those kinds of things. So it really takes a talented team of individuals to come together to make a project as meaningful and as I feel incredible as the film we made.
Bill, thank you so much for being on with us. It's a pleasure for me to talk to you. It's been a while for us to have chatted. My question to you is on the C2D1 project. What made you guys? You did a 30th anniversary. Maybe you can tell us the difference between the original and that 30th anniversary DVD.
Sure. I think that they serve different needs. So when we first had the vision for what we sort of call the classic version, if you will, the one that was released in 2012, it was more to be a feature-length film, and we really wanted to allow people to experience what everyone went through. And then as Christopher was going around to events and we were getting feedback, we realized that was hard to show at an event. If you were going to talk and you had an almost hour and 40-minute film, that just became too difficult to share. So we decided to put something together that would allow the story to be told in a way that was about an hour and that people could experience it. And then you could have a discussion around that. And the other thing is that in 2010, 11, we were trying to find Father Charlie Manning in particular, and his story is amazing how he connected with the haunting, and Chris reconnected, but we weren't able to find him. But then as we approached the 30th anniversary, we actually were able to interview him and then include additional footage. So I think that's the exciting thing with the project, is that we've been able to learn and grow with this. And then as we did the 30th anniversary event, other alumni came back, and we've been able to learn from them. And so it's really, instead of being a project that's very static, it's very evolving and growing, and so that just makes it incredible.
Yeah, I want to say, Bill, thank you very much. I try to remain aware of the wonderful people in my life and what they do, and, as people will tell you, I mentioned Blair Witch Project, a lot of times, and this is just human nature, I suppose, people tend to create an aura around things that may not be legitimate. They want to get attention. They would like to get on TV. They want to feel special. They want to, make some money. And one of the challenges, I think, within the paranormal field when you're making projects is to be authentic. And I want to thank you, because the work that you did, and that Mara did, and that Jeff did, and all the people around us, and Carrie, and is spectacular, because what you managed to do 2 years ago was to get together and bring so many people who were at Geneseo during the haunting, who had their unique perspective on shared events. And for me, not having spoken to almost any of these people for 3 decades, it was tremendous to see and to hear and understand why they said what they said and did what they did. And it was, I think, aside from my personal feelings of being very gratified, I don't think it's very often where you get adults coming back decades later and corroborating events in a very emotional and meaningful way. And I think that was a very special time.
I agree, and that was one of the goals with that, was to bring people back. And I know something that was always important to the director, Mara, was the idea of healing and finding a way to reconnect people. Because when something horrific happens in individuals' lives, there's a bonding that happens, but then you also separate, because sometimes the pain is too much to bear or whatever the reasons are. And I know for her, she wanted to see the film as a way to bring people together. And then that was an opportunity with the 30th anniversary to continue that. To actually, instead of just, I know some individuals, you saw some folks when you did the sci-fi show, but that's not the same. This was coming back to your haunts, if you will, and being able to joke about things and see things. So it was really a reunion or a homecoming is what my inspiration for it was. And then allowing it to be anyone in the public and the students and so forth who wanted to participate could be there. So it was an incredible event.
Well, it was a gift to all of us as well, because, you know, as you know, when you're younger and you have a relationship, most of us don't marry our first, you know, girlfriend or boyfriend or relationship person, and we have some breakups, and most of us don't stay at our job for 40 years. We have to move around, and there's like these separations and anxiety and new careers, and same thing for us, I think, with The Haunting, in that it was nice after all these years to go back and see that friendly face that shared those anxious times and that gave support and encouragement to keep moving forward. So, and I think that Mara achieved that goal and having us heal up a bit. And I think that, you know, your ability to help make that come true is just a great gift to all of us. And, you know, for most people, The Haunting is a concept. You know, people look for evidence of the paranormal. They look for locations where there might be some type of activity. What we found, or was thrust upon us, was almost like, I guess, the Holy Grail, because we had a sentient, full-bodied apparition interacting with a half a dozen people, being noticed by a dozen people, that would communicate via voice, that would move through walls, that would move objects, that would do all these things, talk in the tape recorder, all these different things. And so, you know, even though that's so cool to some people, it was traumatic. And any change can be traumatic. And what you help to create with Please Talk With Me is tremendous, because it doesn't make light of what happened to us.
Correct. It is. And there's a depth there. There's a seriousness to it. And when you were, I guess when we were talking about the film, you had come up with an approach, and then we adopted it about sort of looking at how do you prove a ghost? How do you prove a ghost exists? If a ghost exists, okay, do I believe it, and so forth? But then lastly, what do you do about it? And I think that's something we've been able to carry through the film, because as you've spoken in your lectures, how do you prove things? Right? It is or it isn't, and there's different sides and perspectives and so forth. But ultimately, it's how does this film touch you, and then what can you do to take that in your daily life? And then that way it becomes alive in every individual who's touched by the story. So I think that's the power of this, is it's just not something that was static that happened 30 plus years ago, but that it touches the individuals who attend the lectures and the seminars and watch the film and read the books, that there's something that rings true about it. And from there, then they can find their own meaning, and then they can apply that in their lives. And then that they talk about the ripple effect, right? You throw the coin in the water, and then the ripples, and then that's what that happens. And that's how you really then help make the world better.
Now, Bill, I want to take back to something you said earlier. You talked about the time that all this was going on. The Blair Witch Project was a big, huge thing. How did you feel like when Alan brought this to light to you? Like, did you feel like this was a real thing, or this was just maybe another story, or something that, you know, could go fiction or nonfiction? Like, was there any doubt?
I was skeptical and cautious just by nature. So I have a software programming background, so I'm a little more, you know, structured in how I view things. But it was just compelling that when and Alan spent a lot of time with me talking about it and sharing the interest. And I think I started as an intellectual kind of thing, like do these things intellectually exist? And then as I got to talk to individuals involved, and I met John Jeff at one point, I met Christopher at one point, I got to then really see that it was genuine, and that it was and the experiences that they went through. And it's just compelling when you look at the evidence and so forth. That I think when I put it in the postscript, you can argue cases of ghosts, but only one ghost has to exist for them to exist, right? So it's not every time you hear a ghost story, you hear something, is it really a spirit or something causing it? But it only has to exist in one case, and for me, this is very compelling evidence that something was going on there. Do I know what it is? Can I say that we think it's Tommy Boyd from the Revolutionary War, and there's some research I did related to that, but ultimately we don't know. But what it speaks to is there's something larger than our reality in existence, something more than just the material world, and then that becomes very powerful.
And that's so awesome. That's such a great answer to that question. We're going to take our first station break, and when we come back, we're going to have some more questions, especially about one of my favorite movies that Bill produced. So you are listening to Let's Talk Radio on Clearwater, Florida, and we'll be back.
When it absolutely, positively has to be the best. WGOG DB Clearwater. Let's talk. It's safe to say that we are not alone in the universe. Most of us believe in the existence of intelligent life elsewhere, but where are they? With over 19 years of extensive research, author, investigator, and ufologist Tom Conwell can only provide one answer. They are here. A series of books like no other that contains compelling evidence of UFOs on the East Coast. Volume 1 in the central United States. Volume 2 and the Western U.S. Volume 3. Not only has Tom written about these sightings in his book series, but also painstakingly documented each report on a one-of-a-kind UFO sighting map of the entire United States. Could the eyewitness reports of thousands of people be wrong? Read Tom Conwell's They Are Here series and decide for yourself. They have eluded us. They have traveled far. They are here. Order your proof today at theyarehere-conwell.com. That's theyarehere-conwell.com. Coming soon with your support. Preacher 6 is a small-town preacher that is summoned to the big city where he ends up fighting evil in a literal sense. The characters that he meets along the journey are something special and unique. They could all have their own films made about them. If you like original content that is driven by action and amazing writing, you must support the film Preacher 6. No remakes, redos, sequels, or do-overs for us. Let's take film back. If you like Quentin Tarantino-type films, then you will love Preacher 6. Preacher 6 is like Taxi Driver meets Sin City meets The Prophecy. So please be a part of something awesome. Sometimes darkness just needs a few well-placed bullets. Preacher 6. Support this new film at Indiegogo.com and search Preacher 6. That's Indiegogo.com, Preacher 6. Support it, and let's take film back. Real people, and not pre-recorded and regurgitated radio. WGOG DB Clearwater. Let's talk.
And we are back, and you are listening to Surviving Evidence on letstalkradio.net. And joining us for this 1 hour is our special guest and publisher, Bill Edwards. And Bill, one of the cool things that Chris had turned me on to was K2 Killers. And
yes.
I got to see this, and he won't let me say one of my favorite lines in the movie because I think we'll get kicked off the air, but we're going to investigate the blank out of this.
The beep out of it. Yeah. Yep.
So what was the thought process behind that movie?
So I think a couple things. One is we had worked on a couple projects, and when you make a film, or really any project, right, you end up with material you don't use. And there was an opportunity to take some of the footage that we had and turn that into a short film. And we wanted to do that just so that the actors who put a lot of time into learning their lines and their commitment, it was a way to give them a project that they could enjoy. And we also wanted to make it fun. The the PTWM and so forth, with that haunting is so serious and intense, we wanted to have something that was a little more light-hearted, as well as we were sort of poking at the whole ghost hunting kind of thing, because the main character is like, hey, I'm going on my 100th or first hunting investigation at the Shanley Hotel and so forth. So we wanted to have some fun with it. And then also just to get people to think about it, that if you do go into a place, and I always find it funny that they, okay, we're not here to disturb you, but knock once if you're, if you're here, that kind of thing. And then you can agitate things up. And I always think in talking with Chris, that was one of the things I learned with him is, that is somebody's relative, that's somebody's parent, that's somebody's mother, that's somebody's brother, sister, or child, as an entity. And sometimes in our quest for knowledge or pursuit of fame or glory or whatever that may be, sometimes we forget that. So I think the K2 Killers was sort of trying to put that a little bit in perspective for people in a humorous way.
Yeah, that is a great way to look at it. That is somebody's relative, but you guys got to shoot this at the Shanley Hotel, and that's not too far from us. What was that experience like for you?
Amazing. Just to come in and see the history, and at the time Sal, who's unfortunately since passed, to see his passion for renovating that hotel and the history there and this stuff. And then as we were filming, people commented of having experiences and things. So that was one of the neat things throughout the whole production, both for K2 Killers and the footage we shot there, as well as when we were shooting PTWM. People did have experiences, or they sense things, they feel like somebody walked by them, or this and that happened. So it was neat that even in the production itself, the people were being sensitive to things.
Now, was there anything, like when you guys went back through and you were working on film and you were putting it all together, did you guys capture anything that was like off the radar? Like, you talk about the cast having experiences. Was there something maybe you guys captured on on audio or video, just something that was really weird?
Oh, that's a good question. I know that weird things happened. I don't know that we captured, something like the photograph, but it would be more like equipment would stop working and then start working again, or a light would go out, or there was those kinds of oddity type of things that deal with electrical issues. A computer might malfunction and then, be fine a little later. So I know of that. I didn't look at all the footage per se, so maybe there are some things there. Nothing was brought to my attention from the team that did the editing. So when you make a film, you have different individuals have areas of responsibility, and there was a team that was responsible for doing the editing, and then they went through all the footage and so forth, and then picked out what they recommended would be the best footage to use for the project. But there was hours and hours and hours of footage that were captured with any project like this.
Anything that might have happened while you were there? Anything that maybe you experienced?
The one thing that, jumping to the 30th anniversary, which was interesting for me, so I had done some research based on some insight Chris and his mother actually had related to who the ghost might be. And I went back and to the Geneseo in preparation for the event. I went down to where the torture tree is, and did sort of that, you do the whole clear your mind kind of feeling and whatnot, and I was walking around the torture tree to see if I sensed something, and I pretty much had to do not go in the woods, like this. You do not want to, leave the clearing of the field, and we prefer you not to come, in this area. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then I later found that, as with most historical things, that may not be the actual torture tree itself. The tree may have been a little further down in that wooded area by a creek, and then there was flooding and the tree fell. So that became picked as the symbolic torture tree. Is the legend that I understand. So that was one directly impacting me that I most recently felt with this.
That's interesting. That's some cool insight. That's pretty awesome. I always learn something new from everyone. Like it's just really like when it comes to this whole experience, there's always something new on the table.
My thing that tends to happen to me is I more have deja vu in dreams and listening to my gut. So I'm more sensitive in that way, that I try to allow those kinds of things as I'm working on a project or doing things, to allow the possibilities of the unseen, I guess you could say, to come to fruition. And so that tends to be the area that I focus. I get scared. I'm a chicken. I've gone on ghost hunts and walks and into cemeteries and done all of that. And I know I have a respect for this stuff, and I know that you can get hurt. So I always get a little squirmish around some of these things as well.
Now, Chris, you had an experience in the Shanley Hotel with a picture.
Yeah. I didn't know that the hotel was haunted. There was a fundraiser, and Barry Fitzgerald from GHI was coming up, I think, Mount Kilimanjaro to raise funds for young children who were starving or, didn't have any homes, and so I contributed to that, and I won an overnight stay to what I assume was a bed and breakfast, about an hour away. And when I found out it was known for being haunted, and I mentioned to Sal that I don't want to see anything, and I invited Jeff there because Jeff and I hadn't done anything like that in 30 years, and they put me in the quiet room. I got bored after a while, and so I began to wander around on my own, and I saw a woman who was crying on the bed, and when I asked her if she's okay, she had basically no face, and I realized it was a ghost. I'm like, oh, what am I doing here again? And she said, take it down. It's not my picture. I'm angry about that. Why would he do that to me? And I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'll ask the owner. His name was Sal, as mentioned. And so at the end of the evening, when everyone went to the great room to share their evidence, he said, what about you? And I said, well, I'm embarrassed to say it. I don't want to say anything. Well, which is what happened. I'm like, well, woman upstairs upset about a picture. What do you mean? So I explained to him that it was a ghost, and she was upset by a picture that had been hung on the wall. And so he said, well, where's the picture? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't walked around the hotel yet. I just went to that one room. So he said, if I walk with you, you'll find the picture for me? Not a problem, because it was in my head. She put it in my head. So I walked over to where the gentleman's quarter is and in the back of the hotel, and there was a picture. I said, that's the one she doesn't like. And he goes, oh, my gosh, we just put there yesterday. It doesn't belong there. She's right. People think it's the person who lived here, and it wasn't, so I'll take it down. He said to me, when you're going to come here, you can come here. You're like part of the family. So that was a bizarre thing, and sometimes you can't predict things. Things just happen all around you. One of the things that I saw in the chat room that I think that Todd asked was about the room itself. Is it still haunted? When I got to the room, I didn't know anything about haunting. I assumed it wasn't. And my understanding is that not much has happened since then. There was one young lady who, back in 2010, went there with her boyfriend to provoke the ghost that was still there, did her history of it, and basically they got sick, physically ill, broke up, and that was the end of that experiment. So that was that, but nothing that I heard in terms of like active, haunting and things like that. And the school years ago, they would say don't talk about it. Now they, to some degree, celebrate it because it's money. It's it's a way to get notoriety for it. People now will sometimes fight for the room. And Bill, you mentioned about the K2 killers and people working on it. Kerry Lyon was the key creator behind that in terms of the concepts and ideas, and he had been a camera person for Please Talk With Me. And one of the things you always do is you always try to have everyone get a shot, in front and back or on the side, all these different things, and that was very nice of you. And that was also shown at Syracuse, and I remember people laughed a lot at that. It was funny. So that was enjoyable. In terms of, the here and now, I had the opportunity to go with you to Pennsylvania this past weekend. I'd been ill for a while, my first journey out of the house a little bit, and I got to attend a symposium you invited me to. Do you want to speak about that a little bit, Bill?
Sure. So in Pennsylvania, Mark Stavish has an organization called the Institute of Hermetic Studies, and what they look into is more the esoteric practices of things such as alchemy, Kabbalistic thought, and so forth. And you had mentioned earlier that I was a Freemason, and that's one of the areas that I'm exploring to see how I can tie some of those concepts into Freemasonry. So they had their 20th anniversary event. Symposium, if you will, and that's really something for a group to last 20 years like that. So I wanted to go down, having talked to Mark and him assisting me with some of my Masonic-related projects. I wanted to support his efforts. And then about a month ago, unfortunately, one of the speakers, who I also know through the Masons, he couldn't present because he had a death in his family and would be traveling at the time of the event. So he asked if I wanted to have an opportunity to talk about the film and the experiences with it, and then possibly show it. And then over that time, I approached Chris, and I said, I know you've been ill, but there's an opportunity that we could do a surprise visit of the Ghost Boy of Geneseo. So it was actually quite fun because no one really knew who he was. We just sort of said hi, and he was there hanging out. He got there in the mid-afternoon, and then when we presented, then I invited him up, and then they were able to hear a first-hand retelling of the experiences, and I think it was very meaningful and valuable for everyone there.
There were some incredible minds there, Bill. There's some professors and philosophers, and my brain actually hurt after a while listening to all the giant words. And,
so some of the individuals involved, particularly those online, maybe on the radio, may be familiar with Golden Dawn and some of those groups. So these are individuals who, what it seems to be is that you have the individual who's your person who is the catalyst. and then they may have somebody who is a secretary or a recorder, much like what happened in your case, right, in the sense of that you were sort of the focal point of the haunting, and then we needed John Jeff to write those notes. Right. If he didn't write the notes, we wouldn't have been able to go back and have the journal and have the script come out of that and everything that we were able to do with that. So those groups sort of followed that same pattern, and then some of the individuals who were presenting were then in direct contact with those individuals who were the secretaries. So they were, or the recorders. So it was neat because then they were offering their perspective and feelings on things as they tried to assemble these various occult or esoteric writings that can be very complex. And one of the challenges I always find with this is that as someone experiences things further out of the mundane, it becomes more and more in their own language as they express it. And that's some of, I think, the difficulty then in understanding it, because you need to understand their mindset and where they're coming from to try to put those words and terms that you can understand. And that's one of the things I like about working with Mark and his group, is that they don't have one path where you must do this or you must follow this. It's this is our approach and understanding, but realize that it's really the substance that matters, not necessarily the form. And I think that's so valuable, because sometimes we get so caught up in the saying all hat, no cattle, where we're just about all the image and going through the motions, but it's really the substance that matters.
Right. And going back to what happened to my friends and I back at Geneseo in 1985, we left that college with a very negative viewpoint or experience from those days. And over the next 2 decades, almost 25 years, it remained negative, where Jeff burned many of the notes. I didn't want to talk about anything in public. Some people refused to acknowledge it occurred and just tried to block it out of their heads. But thanks to good people along the way, such as yourself, such as Josh Gregory, who put us on the air, such as Chris Edwards, who made the connection with the sci-fi, such as Mark Tria, who's been really the backbone behind all of the things that have happened with all her work and research and editing and her vision. People around Jeff and I and Linda and Beth and Craig and Ed and Luke and Brian and Judy, people around us are the ones that made all this possible where we're here today. In fact, you mentioned before Father Charlie Manning. I mean, he helped these young kids. And as Phil was asking before about, there's something perhaps in hearing this story, these events that make people think this seems authentic. We never use the words, right or wrong or correct, because viewpoints can change and are accurate, but the experience is very authentic. And, it's people like yourself, Bill, if I can say, who give of their energies, give of their finances, their time, their efforts to allow people to hear the good that came from this, that has turned all that negativity into something decidedly positive. And I want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be part of the project. And to meet all the people along the way. It's really drawn an incredibly talented group of people to be part of the production, and Tim Shaw with the books and so forth, and then the extended family, if you will, of people who show up at events and are touched by the story. So that just makes it so more meaningful.
Yes, and you mentioned too the book. Please Talk to Me. Now it's called C2D1 Haunting by Tim Shaw, and Tim was at the first public discussion that Jeff and I ever had at Geneseo way back, 7-8 years ago, and he had heard about this haunting for a long time and had spent some time trying to pursue it, and was thrilled to be able to see if these people were real, these things happened. And when you approached him to say, "Gee, do you want to write the first book on this?" He agreed to do so, and that was a nice thing too.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and everybody has been, the artists, Burning Bridget Cleary and others have given their music and helped support us. So it's just, it's been a project that people see the value in, and it's nice because there isn't a lot of money in. I mean, of course we have to pay for things and resources, but it's not that we have a large bankroll. So it's people coming into this because they believe in it versus what can I get out of it. And I think that helps keep things authentic as well and genuine.
I think so too. And we have about a minute for our final break, Bill, but I wanted to let the listeners know about your website. It's http:// CITA Productions, CITA PRODUCTIONS, CITAProductions.com. And if you go on that site, you can see everything about The Haunting, the film Please Talk With Me, the 3rd Anniversary Symposium, the K2 Killers, and all the work that Bill has helped to organize and create and produce, so that there is a record, a recording of all the things that happened to myself and the other survivors of the C2D1 Haunting. And when we get back, I'd like to talk a little bit about the symposium and possible recordings of that, and then we can jump into your future goals. So hang with us, Mr. Edwards. You're listening to Surviving Evidence on the Let's Talk Radio Network, and we'll be right back.
In 2012, Keith Linder, after successfully obtaining a management position at a prestige healthcare company, decides the time is right for him and his girlfriend to move in together. That's putting things lightly. Weird things begin to happen within days of moving into the modern suburban home. The horrors they witnessed and desperately tried to fight off would end up putting them at the odds with members of the paranormal community and themselves. This gripping story, told from the house occupant's point of view, not only lists tales, but also includes pictures, video reenactments, commentary, and audio of the events being reported. Author Keith Linder does not ask you to believe him. He only asks you to listen. The Bothell Hell House by Keith Linder, now available on Amazon. The book, The Bothell Hell House. The author, Keith Linder. Order yours today on Amazon. Shopping, dining, beautiful lakes and rivers, and a monster? Welcome to Braxton County, West Virginia. Centrally located, Braxton County, West Virginia is the ideal place to visit. Natural beauty and recreation abound with 2 beautiful lakes for easy kayaking and canoeing, and many hiking trails. Did we mention the Flatwoods Monster? That's right. Visit Braxton County, West Virginia's Flatwoods Monster Museum and not only learn about the Flatwoods Monster, but walk in the same footsteps as the people who witnessed it. Nearly all of our attractions can be found within a few miles of Interstate 79. Visit us online at braxtonwv.org. That's braxtonwv.org. Braxton County, West Virginia. Center yourself here.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has delivered a one-of-a-kind reading experience, covering everything from psychics, UFOs, paranormal investigations, and more. To subscribe, visit fatemag.com or call 828-702-3032. That's 828-702-3032. Subscribe and find your true reports of the strange and unknown at fatemag.com.
And we are back, and you're listening to Surviving Evidence, letstalkradio.net. And joining us on this hour, and it's been a great adventure so far, is publisher and writer Bill Edwards. Bill, thank you so much for being with us and taking the time. I want to definitely do my Siskel and Ebert with the whole K2 Killers. So if you guys go to the website, definitely check that out. You can, I believe you can click right on it and watch it right there.
Yep. Yeah, what we decided to do is to make it available as a YouTube video. So it's actually the safe for public YouTube. It was a little, the one we premiered with was a little more funny. Like you said, there's a couple lines in it, and we've modified that a little bit to be safe on YouTube. But yeah, if you go out, you can also if you go to C2D1Haunting.com, it'll take you to the same location. So you can either get there through the production company, or you can just do C2D1Haunting.com, and that'll take you, redirect you right to the same location.
Yeah,
if you check that, I'm sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
No, just, we'll talk about that in a minute. So go ahead with your question.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I jumped. Oh, sorry, Chris. I jumped.
I can't jump anywhere. So
I know. In the creating of the 30th anniversary disc, we talked about it earlier. What were some of the things that you had to go through to get that project started?
Oh, boy. The first thing was to get the college to agree to allow us to have the facility and them to sort of underwrite that, because there was no way that we could rent the facility, and we wanted to do it at a time that students were there and have access to the buildings and the campus, and then eventually we were able to do a tour of the Erie Hall dorm. So we really needed to have the college's support, which we worked with the Alumni Association to do that, and it became part of their reunion weekend that they had that October. So that was really the critical piece, because we talked about you could meet at a hotel in Geneseo or you could do this and that, but we really wanted to give the individuals who attended the opportunity to walk on the campus where it happened, and then to talk to the survivors and hear, hey, this is where I was walking, or this area there used to be a tree here, and this is where I saw the ghost, and then that just puts it in perspective. Then when you see Erie Hall and you see that it is on the second floor, and there's no way that somebody could climb in the window, and then you look in the room, which I've had been fortunate to see the room a few times now, and get some photographs of it and all that. I think that was the key piece. And then just the support. We had great sponsors and the speakers, the lecturers who were involved, and then just everybody who then stepped up as a team to help make it happen. So it was just it was a great time.
That's awesome, and I have Chris has actually taken me to the school, and we have pictures of us standing outside that window. It would be kind of a stretch. I don't even think the tallest player on the basketball team, who was probably about 6'1" at Geneseo, could have gotten up there. I have one last question. I'm going to turn you over to Chris. School spirits. What are your thoughts on that sci-fi episode?
Oh, interesting. I think it's great because it got the story out there in a way that we couldn't. So we were in the middle of our film production, and then through some connections that happened at Penn State, I believe, Sci-Fi and Mark Burnett were making this series called School Spirits, and then we were able to negotiate that they didn't own the rights to anything, so it wasn't like we had to give up the story. And that was one of the challenges early on with the production, is whenever you approach somebody, they want to have control. They want to have a stake in the game. And that's why we went the production route that we did, because we wanted to maintain that creative control. But with School Spirits, it allowed it to get out to an audience that would have never heard it otherwise. So whereas we maybe are in the tens of thousands of individuals who have been to events and seen it, we're talking probably millions now that have seen it through School Spirits. So it's a good introduction to the haunting, and they can experience it. And I've been at events where people say, oh yeah, I remember seeing that on TV, so that kind of thing. So I think it, again, just raises awareness about it. And it's really about retelling the story. So we were able to work with them synergistically, if you will, as opposed to, not in the same direction. So that was very good. And they actually supported us. Due to timing, things didn't quite happen the way we wanted it to, but they were going to allow us to show that episode at Geneseo, no charge. They said, no, we want to respect what you're doing, and we were able to negotiate with them, and we had that as an option to show at the event in Geneseo, that they would have let it air that. So anybody who knows anything about contracts and all, you can watch things in your home, but they get a little nervous when you start showing things in public venues without paying royalty fees and so forth. So I think it's been a positive relationship.
Yeah, I was pleased to see that myself, because you don't want to have competing forces create any kind of negative environment when things are just becoming very positive. Sci-Fi quite simply said, listen, let us get first dibs on this. Delay the release of Please Talk With Me until Sci-Fi airs. Let us get first dibs. And what that does is allows them to invest in something that's been shown before, people will be interested in seeing. The benefit to Please Talk With Me being delayed is that people have now seen Sci-Fi, millions of people across the globe, and then they can say, okay, well, here is the documentary with the bells and whistles, a more thorough, a more intellectual look at the events themselves. And so I think it was a case of one hand watching the other, where both parties were served very well by adult decision-making. Would you agree with that, Bill?
I completely agree.
And that's rare sometimes.
Yeah, I remember I was on a family vacation with my in-laws, and my kids were younger at the time. So it was back June of 2012, I believe. We were at Disney, and I put on the Sci-Fi station. All of a sudden, the story comes on, and I'm like on the phone right after talking to Chris. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're on, the story's on national TV, and it was just an amazing, powerful moment for those of us who have wanted to help tell the story. It was really viewed as another opportunity to do that, and I think they did it in a pretty respectful way as well. Much to your integrity, Chris, and to John, Jeff, and others, that you challenged them as well to keep the authenticity as best you could with the story.
Well, it was important to us, and one of the benefits, Bill, as you know, and as Phil, as you've seen, is that there are a number of people, or good people, all across the globe that find value in hearing the experience, are highly supportive of myself and Jeff and everybody else involved in the haunting. And they've also helped to turn that experience to something very positive. And I'm trying to name a few people, list a few people off, and don't pick your order, but people have been very, very supportive and kind. People like Kathleen Wilson, Andrew Knapp, and they're both in the chat room tonight. Barry Ruggiero has been an awesome supporter for us. Marsha Moore and Marty Haynes, they had an event this past Sunday down in New Jersey. Chuck Lehman, Martha Hazard-Deckard. Michelle Prevost, she's just a great woman. We're going to be seeing her in June out in Pennsylvania. You have to thank Todd and Oriel for allowing Phil and I to be on the air here. Michael Lewis, who was my partner in crime for a number of years. Kat Hobson, who really pushed me to come in this direction. Darlene Morehouse, who I met her up in Syracuse, a retired police officer who just really worked through some tough times and in a very inspirational way has become a great role model. Connie Stinson out in California, Billy Nimuth, Shelley Burke Robertson, a lot of people who, over the years, has been so positive and helpful that makes the notoriety, that makes all the effort worth it for us. So I want a special thanks to them. And also, Bill, to you and your family. When you invest all this time in these projects, it's time for your family too. How have they supported you over the years?
Amazingly. My wife Terry has been there. Whenever I've needed. The paranormal's not her thing per se. She's interested in it. She was a psychology major in college, and she's interested in it. But she knows that it's something that's important to me, so I couldn't ask for more support. And she's there to help at the Geneseo event and the symposium. She was there helping to man the tables where we were, having merchandise and information available and so forth. So she's always been there, which has helped.
Right. And John and Kathy Tobin, they've been there as well.
Yep, John and Kathy, of course. And one of the fun memories I have is when we got the loft. For the room, I was able to work with a loft company and bring that down, and we were making the set. And I had my son Michael come with me. And that was fun because he was there. He wanted to know how much money he was going to get. I'm like, that doesn't work that way, Mike. But we wanted to have him as he became the loft master because he helped with the screwdrivers and so forth, putting the loft together. So it was neat to have them as part of it. And then when we showed the film at the Little Theater, which is a prestigious theater in Rochester, New York, my family was there. My daughter Katie came with her friends and all, and then they loved some of the lines, some of the humor lines and so forth that were in the film as well. So it's neat to see them appreciate the projects that you're able to work on.
Well, they say that you can't go home again, and I think for the most part that's true. But you've been instrumental, Bill, in allowing myself and the other survivors to do just that, with the recreation of the dorm room and the movie set. With casting of individuals that looked and sounded like Jeff and myself and other students, with helping with Tim Shaw's book, the sci-fi show Please Talk With Me, the K2 Killers, the Symposium, all the things over the time. And I'll never forget, Mara, by the way, won a Best Director award for her job with the film. And they were filming a party scene that took place on Valentine's Day, the night that picture of me, my hands outstretched, was taken. And they're all talking back and forth. And one of the characters said to the other actor, he said, "Chris," and I went, "What?" I'm like, cut. I'm like, it seems so real to me. I answered the actor. I'm like, "You should probably not to do that, okay?" I'm like, "Sorry, so sorry." But that's the level of authenticity that the production crew put into Please Talk With Me. And if you haven't seen it, this is not a plug for you to spend money necessarily, but if you want to experience in a safe way what an extreme haunting feels like, and I'm very, very proud of it. You might want to check that out. Please Talk With Me, because it gives you an insight in a very safe way, and it'll bring up thoughts in your mind about what you would do in that moment, how you prove things to people, how you survive when you fear you're not sane, who do you trust, how do you trust, and again, Bill, thanks in large part to you, this is possible.
Thank you, Chris. It's been an honor to be part of the project.
Well, and you mentioned before about wanting to do good things to improve the world around you, to spread knowledge, and you've been doing just that for quite some time. What's in the future for you? Any goals in the upcoming future?
Yeah, I do, actually. One of the things that I've learned with some of this is it's an emotional exercise as well as an intellectual. So when you're working on projects, sometimes you want to get through things as quickly as you can. Other times you need to let things sit for a little bit and then come back to them. So what I did is I was very fortunate that we were able to record a good section of the 30th anniversary. The speakers who spoke, the lectures with the alumni, the ghost walk that you did around campus. So I've had all that footage sort of under wraps. And actually, what I did when it was your recent birthday, I shared some of that with you, and you were blown away because you didn't know it existed. And then that led you and I to have some talks where we have some creative ideas coming of some things that we want to do with that, both from a writing perspective to capture some of what was discussed, and then potentially be able to follow up. Now that it's viewed in a positive experience, we can go back to Linda and others and possibly ask some questions related to things as well as there'll be some things from the footage itself that I plan to put on the website in the near future. So
yeah, I was stunned, Bill. I was stunned. You shared with me some of the footage. I didn't know it existed, and I know that Jeff and Mara and SUNY Geneseo, part of their radio crew and TV crew, recorded different aspects and different portions of it. But it's just amazing without nerves of having to speak in front of people, sit back and watch and just see, expressions of people's faces and as they recall certain moments and when realization strikes them and their eyes light up, and what an amazing blessing it is. And I don't know if there are many recordings like that where you have a half dozen or more adults gathered in a public place speaking credibly about a haunting experience 30 years later, saying things like, so that's why you said that, or I remember you doing this, and as though no time had passed, even though it had. And so I think myself aside as being part of that process, just the idea that it exists is an amazing thing, and I hope that that is able to share it at some point in time, because that is just a great thing. And once again, I want to share with listeners, CITAProductions.com. Is that correct, Bill?
That is, yep.
And then C2D1 Haunting.com?
Yep, either one gets you to the same place now. So I've recently redesigned the website, upgraded some things, and I'm going to be adding some content. I also am going to be making sort of a portal page that as I find things on the web and things related to the haunting, I want to have like a one-stop shopping place so people can come there, if you will, and it becomes here's all the links to all the various things related to the haunting and information. So I want to make it a useful site as well, not just there is the opportunity, linked to that is PTWM, the film, to purchase a copy of the film or Tim Shaw's book, but also then I want to have it as an opportunity to share information with people and connect.
Well, I look forward to working with you some more, and I know Phil has one final question for you.
Well, it's more of a huge thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for being with us tonight, and I got an opportunity to meet you about 2 years ago now, I believe. It's been that long already. And your family. You have a wonderful family. You welcome me into your home, and I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to really say thank you for that.
Of course. It was a pleasure to meet you too. It's nice the quality of people that you meet. Sometimes you know how life is, right? And this project and this story and the people involved just are amazing. And to all the listeners out there, thank you for being interested, and hopefully you'll be able to take something from this and it'll make you think a little differently, or have you go look up something about the history of the Revolutionary War. And that's what is neat with these things, because they become doorways into other areas and things that you may not be familiar with. And we talked about Tommy Boyd and that and the Sullivan campaign, and that leads to a whole other level of understanding and so forth. So there's just an amazing journey.
Well, Bill, I've been very pleased and lucky to be on the journey with you, and I just want to share one thing with the listeners, and that is this. About 15 years ago, maybe 14 years ago, you and I have become friends, and we're just talking. We were sitting outside under the stars summertime at a table, just reflecting on things, and, there were job issues and interpersonal issues and, the world of politics we talked about. And then we sat there and we realized that maybe someday we'll find a way to share some of these things. And we both felt confident it would happen someday. And then eventually it worked out in a way where it occurred in such a remarkable, positive fashion. And I want to thank you for being such a good friend all these years. And I want to thank you for riding the waves, ups and downs, through all the turbulence. And I really can't thank you enough. I'm very proud to be your friend. I'm very proud to know you.
Thank you, Chris. Proud to be your friend as well. That means a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. You couldn't make it up in some ways. So it's been, and I think as Mara would say, something that was, such a extreme, horrific event, then how it's been able to be turned into something positive and bring people together. And I think that's really a powerful message about what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. I remember when the movie Pusaki was finished filming, the set was broken down, and everyone's departing after working for a year or so, year and a half. Mara looked at me and said, "Well, how do you feel?" I said to her, "Relieved." I was so relieved that the story now is beyond me. The experience lived on beyond just me holding it in my head. It's a great gift that, Bill, you helped to give to me and to the rest of the haunted survivors, and now to the people who get to watch the film and read the books and see the symposium tapes. So thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Bill. I really appreciate it.
It was a great opportunity to be here, and I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for listening in. Have a good night.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, everyone. You've been listening to Surviving Evidence on Let's Talk Radio. We wish you a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Good night.